minutes here, but I just want to give y'all a little bit of an overview about how the night's going to go. I will kind of cover some housekeeping, let Jenny get into the thick of her presentation. We'll leave some time for Q&A at the end. So yes, but I thought it would be fun if at first we kind of started out and everyone kind of shared where they're tuning in from. You can put it in the chat, you can turn your cameras on, wave hello. You don't have to if you don't want to, whatever you feel comfortable with, but we always love to see everyone's beautiful faces. So we'd love to know where everyone is tuning in from. I am from New Orleans, and Jenny, you are in?
I'm from Chicago, in Chicago right now.
Chicago. Oh, it's so good to see everyone. Hello. Okay, awesome. We got some New York's, Memphis, Houston, Detroit, Hawaii. Oh, that's cool. Jealous. Houston, California, Florida, Virginia. Wow. I think we've got the whole nation, Jenny.
I know. I'm not seeing a repeat. So
I know.
Everyone should tell their friends if they're nearby, if they live nearby.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is awesome. Again, thank y'all so much for coming. I'll just do a quick little overview of what we're going to do tonight. So we will start out, I want to share a little bit more about Swerve and all of our different wonderful products. So I'll give you a brief overview about Swerve at the beginning. I'll also give you Jenny's full bio because she's pretty cool as a dietitian and she's obviously super awesome for starting this whole All Access Dietetics thing. So I want y'all to know about all the wonderful things that she's done. And then we're also going to give you guys a few really awesome opportunities for coming tonight. We are going to share a discount code for one free review session recording. It's a $37 value. And then we also are going to do a little giveaway of Fancy tickets. So 3 different winners are going to get an all-paid registration to Fancy. And then Emily from our team is going to drop that link in the chat below. So make sure you grab that link. We'll share it again and throughout the Zoom, but definitely grab that link. And that's how you will get the code for the free review session recording, and then also the sign up for the free Fancy registration. And 3 different of y'all will, 3 of you will win that. So very exciting. And then let's see what else. We're also going to do a few polls all throughout the Zoom. So stay tuned for those. They'll just kind of pop up throughout the presentation. So you'll be able to participate that way. And then we are going to send out the slides and the recording after. So you don't need to worry about taking notes or anything like that. You'll have access to all of this at the end. So, okay, I think that's all of our housekeeping. But again, guys, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. We will have time for Q&A at the end. So probably about 15 minutes or so. So, we will cover those at the end in the chat, and you can use that function for the questions, or you can just shout them out. So whatever you feel more comfortable with. So, okay, I think that's it for the housekeeping. Now I'm going to tell y'all a little bit more about Swerve. So I am the registered dietitian over at Swerve. We are a healthy baking and cooking company. We have a lot of really great, awesome, better for you ingredients for baking and sweetening up all of your favorite desserts or smoothies or yogurts or things like that. So we have a line of sweeteners. They're all 0-calorie natural ingredients, the main being erythritol, which is that sugar alcohol that's more tummy friendly than the others. So we've got a granular, confectioners, and brown. These are all great for baking and cooking and replacing sugar in all of your recipes. And then we also have a whole line of bake mixes. We've got a vanilla cake here. We have chocolate chip cookies. We have a chocolate cake mix. So we have a lot of wonderful mixes that you can use. Let's see, if you're studying for the RD exam possibly, and you want a little healthy sweet treat while you're studying, or they're also great to recommend to patients if they're looking to, if they have diabetes or looking to lose weight or just looking to bake a little bit healthier. Really great options for them there. So, all right, that's the spiel on Swerve. Please, y'all, if you ever have any questions or want to reach out to me about Swerve or any questions about, being an RD at a food company, would love to answer those. And we'll definitely share all of our contact information at the end. And yeah, I think that's all on Swerve. So Jenny, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you and read your bio, and then I'll let you take it away. So Jenny Westerkamp, RD, CSSD, is the founder of All Access Dietetics, which she started in 2008 as an RD to be. Since then, All Access Dietetics has helped thousands of future dietitians through the process of becoming dietitians. And let's see, since 2008 with application coaching, RD exam prep, and career development. Jenny is also the team nutritionist for the Chicago Bulls. So Jenny, thank you so much for being here. You've done so many amazing things in your career, and even before you were an RD. So super, super excited to have you here, and we just can't wait to learn from you.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, everyone. I think I'm gonna turn on my slides here. Hold on one second. We will get this party started. And then I do this. Okay. Hopefully I'm good, Amy.
Yeah, looks great.
Awesome. Okay. I'm just going to do that. All right. Awesome. Okay. So again, my name is Jenny Westerkamp. I am the founder of All Access Dietetics. I have been doing this for so long, and I love every single day of it. And that sounds super cheesy, but I just love helping people get through the process of, going through the process of applying to dietetic internships and now this RD exam. I just felt like when I was doing it myself, there needed to be more support in the process. And, I thought, okay, I better just be the one that does it. And now 13 years later, I have a team, I have coaches and tutors and people that help just make sure that everyone knows about All Access Dietetics and that there's resources and support to help RD to Bs get through the process of becoming a dietitian. But again, it's really a passion project, and is something that I love doing. So I'm really excited to be here. I'm so glad for the great turnout. I want to thank Swerve for being able to support this and inviting me to speak and be able to have this event. And I also want to congratulate you all, because it's awesome that you're taking time out of your day, either live right now, or if you're watching the recording, and you're putting the work in. You want to know what these mistakes are, and you don't want to make them. And so I want to make sure that you leave here just feeling super confident that you can pass this exam, and you have all of these tools, resources, strategies that will just make you feel like you can conquer it, because you really can. Just as a really quick pep talk, like, you've gone through the DPD classes, you've gone through the internship hours, you've maybe had jobs and things on the side that have all prepared you to crush this exam. And now it's just a matter of not making these mistakes that are very easy to make when you're actually studying and preparing for it. But yeah, it's that one last mountain to climb. And I know by the end of this, this hour that we have together, that you're going to feel a lot better about it. So congrats again to you for taking the time, putting in the work to set yourself up for success. Okay. So the agenda today, I'm going to go through the RD exam basics for those of you that maybe aren't familiar, you've never taken it before. Then we'll talk through some statistics, not to scare you or to be kind of a downer about the statistics, but they're not amazing. But we'll talk about how you can be on the positive side of those stats. And then we'll go through 4 mistakes that I see people make. And in between 3 and 4, we'll talk about how you can create a study plan that is unique to you. All right, so the first poll question, which I think I have, I'm going to see if it shows up here on the chat. But I want to know in the chat, hopefully I can see it. Have you taken the RD exam before? So for people here, let me see if I can, oh, I can see it. Okay. For people here, tell me if you've taken it. You guys are so fast. It types no and yes. That's great. Yes, twice. Okay, so we definitely have a mix. I would say more no's than yeses, which is good. Yeah, and 3 times. Okay, yeah, I'm seeing multiple attempts, which is super common. You're going to see you're not alone. If there's anyone here that has, not passed, then you're going to not be alone in all of this. Also, really quick, I love seeing the names of RD to Bs that I have talked to on the phone or that have used our services. It's great that you all are here. Okay, so then the next poll question is, when are you taking the RD exam? So it looks like we have mostly first-time test takers. Are you taking it this summer. It looks like this summer, next week. Oh my gosh.
I'm seeing a lot of July.
July,
I'm seeing some
yes.
later this year. Lots of Julys though.
Yeah, next year summer. Okay, so then we got people that definitely are getting ahead of it.
We've got some fall, August.
Yeah, so we this is good. It's good to see the variety. Most people, it's kind of right in front of you right now. It's definitely of urgency. So this is good. You're going to learn a lot today that you can apply right away. Tomorrow to Amanda. Good luck, Amanda, for your test tomorrow. This could maybe help. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so let me just close this real quick so we don't do that. All right. Now I'll share the basics because most of you have not taken the exam yet, but the RD exam is given by CDR, which is the credentialing agency for dietitians, and it is a computer adaptive test, which I wrote down the definition of that for those of you that don't know what that means. So this is the type of test, instead of doing an SAT, like a pen and paper type test, it's all right there. All the questions are sort of like in front of you and they're determined. This computer adaptive test means that the questions will adapt based on your performance throughout the exam. And so it will administer questions that provide the most information on a person's competence, which means that it's kind of like choose your own adventure, where you're going to, depending on your performance and how you answer certain questions, it will give you maybe more of that question to make sure that you have that competence. Or if you answered it correctly, then it'll say you do have competence in this topic, and it gives you those points and moves on. I'm giving you, that's a very simplified explanation that I just said right there, but just know that every time, like if you are going to take it multiple times, you could have completely different questions. You'll have different questions compared to those like friends or people that you've have taken it at the same time. And it really is, it can feel like different. It can feel like, oh, I had so many clinical questions, or I had so much food science questions. And that's just based on your performance. And the exam is trying to get you to get to the passing score and going to figure out if you have the competency and you're answering enough of the questions right to get to that. It's, again, you can also call CDR if you want a further explanation of that, but I wouldn't overthink it too much. I would just know that if you are getting a lot of one question, it might mean that you're not doing as well in that area. So just knowing like, okay, you really have to, I know you're trying on every question, but you really have to like lock in on those and make sure that you can get enough in that topic right to be able to pass. And then there's a minimum of 125 questions and then a maximum of 145 questions. If you answer enough questions right within the 125, then it'll just show that you passed. And if you haven't answered enough right, then you'll keep going. Now, people freak out about that mentally. They're like, oh, if I get to 126, then that means I haven't done well. But that's not necessarily true, because you still have 20 questions to get enough points. So it's not like it's over for you if you get to 126. You can definitely pass with 145 questions. But sometimes it just means you needed to get a couple more in a certain domain right in order to do that. And then 25 questions are piloted pre-test questions, and you won't know which ones these are. This is good mentally too. It's very much a mind game or a mindset game with a lot of this, but you have to know these basics so that you can then apply that and kind of be ready for it. But when you think about it, if you have 125 questions minimum, 25 of those are going to be piloted, which means they're ones that are tested by CDR to see what the performance is. Like they're testing to see if this should go and be an official question for the exam. And they're testing like, is this confusing? What percentage of people are going to get this right? And so you're like piloting it for them, but it doesn't count towards your score. And so the mind game that you can tell yourself is, hey, just assume there's going to be some questions that really throw you off, and assume and tell yourself, so you stay confident, just tell yourself that it's a piloted or pre-test question and that it won't count towards your score. Again, a mind game that you can play, but it just helps because people can really easily lose their confidence as they start to see questions that throw them off, but just know it might not even matter for you. And then the final basic is you have a 2.5-hour time limit, and you must complete 125 questions for a score. Very important. Underline, highlight, remember this. I actually had Danielle, she works for me, and she publicly shared this story. So I'm not violating any privacy here, but she went on our All Access Dietetics Instagram, and she shared about her experience where she took the RD exam and she only completed 100, I think it was 123 questions. She knew that she was running out of time, but she thought, just like another standardized test, she thought, okay, like it'll just count those last two as wrong, right? Like she just won't get those right. And it turns out there is a rule, and it's on the CDR website, that you have to complete all 125 for a score. So she goes to get her results and it says inconclusive because she left those last two blank. So it's very important, if you're running out of time, the five minutes before, you have to make sure that you have answers for 125 questions minimum. Don't think that they'll be like that you can just submit without it. I know you can do that in other standardized tests, but that is not the case for the RD exam. So you have the 2.5 hour limit. You can show your time on there. Some people like to hide it and then know that they kind of get a feel, or look at the clock in the room and get a feel for when they should maybe check the time, or anything like that. But that's really, really important. And for her, that was like the difference between passing and failing, right? She waited the 45 days after she passed. That's what you have to do before you can take it again. And then she passed it after that. But she didn't even know her score the first time around. It wasn't even scored.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Okay,
it is crazy.
There were a couple questions, Jenny, I want to clarify before we go on to the other basic stuff. But someone asked, how many is enough, right? Is there a passing percentage? Would it be the 125, or is
it's not? Yeah, what's so confusing? So there will be different levels of difficulty type questions. So, and I'm just making this up, but it works like where you might have a very hard question that's worth 3 points, and then another question that might be worth 1, just based on their level of difficulty. And so all you're trying to do is get to enough points weighted based on difficulty, and enough in each domain, like that we'll talk about right here. And then that will equal the passing score. So it's not based on percentage, it's based on if you got enough of like the hardest questions or enough of like the lower point questions, right? So it can be a different number depending on the questions you got.
Gotcha.
So confusing, but
it's almost like level of difficulty have like a higher weight than like easier questions.
Yes, and that's where the computer adaptive component comes in, where they're going to take you through the journey of least questions. They want you to, just get to 125. That would be the most ideal, and you got enough points right in that journey, or you have to keep going to try to get enough points to the pass.
And then another just kind of tactical question was, does it tell you how many questions you have left?
They're numbered. The questions are numbered. So you would just know what number you were on. It wouldn't change, because like that would change as you got questions right or wrong. And so it wouldn't show you that. Meaning like you might need 125 to pass, but then if you get some wrong, then you'll start to need like 130 to pass or whatever. So it just shows the number of the question. So you'll see like question 17, question 30. So you'll know you need to get to the 125 at minimum.
Okay. And then we had one more question kind of in that same vein. Do they end it when you have gotten to the right number of points?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the ending will start at 125, but it could go longer once you get to the right amount of points. Okay.
Yep, exactly. And I'm saying like points, like it's not 3, 2, 1, like it's whatever like CDR does. I don't know like those exact numbers, but it's that idea that they do that. So it's not like 3 points to get to the 25. It's not like how that works.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Very confusing, I know, but I would say that's a minor detail in the grand scheme of, everything that you would want to know about it. But okay, so thanks for the questions. Those are really good. So then the RD exam basics here, the final thing on that is the different domains that you have. So there's 4 domains, meaning 4 different areas that you will want to know. There's a CDR outline that goes through in more detail, like what these topics are in each of the domains. And then they're broken down by percentage of the exam. And so the principles of dietetics, it is currently 25%. So for people taking it through the rest of this year. But then for people taking it in 2022, we enter a new exam cycle where the percentages of the domains are changing. So the principles of dietetics is going down, specifically in the food science area and in the composition of food. That's lowering, and then they're going to increase the second domain, which is nutrition care for individuals and groups, from 40 to 45%. And then management, it's staying the same. And then food service systems is about the same in terms of how it's all broken down. Okay. All right, poll question for you guys. These are two-part questions. So the first one I'm going to ask is, what do you think the pass rate is for first-time test takers? So you can enter in your guess for the pass rate. So the percentage of people that are first-time test takers that pass. And then I'm going to do one for repeat test takers, but just tell me what you think for the first-time test takers here. And you
Okay,
guys,
we have quite a range. I'm seeing lots of like 40, 45, and then all the way up to like 75, something like that.
okay.
But then lots of in between as well.
I will be sharing all the stats with you guys, but yeah, so we're seeing the 40s to 70s. Okay. Sounds good. Good guesses. And then what do we think the pass rate is for repeat test takers?
I think it's got to be higher, probably closer to like 80, right?
Nice. I got to guess for 93, hopefully higher. 65.
Oh, it's only 20%.
Everyone's all over the place. Great. I love that you'll now
see these numbers.
Yeah, you'll now know what they are here in a short second.
Okay, we're all over the map on this one.
Yeah.
This is exciting.
All right. So this is from CDR. These are the official stats. Now, you have, I just shared like 2019 through 2020, and I did that because, with the pandemic and everything, I feel like there was a little bit of a dip from it, but we'll kind of go through it. So in 2019, you're looking at first-time test takers about 70%, then 69, then 70, then 67 in the last 6-month period. So that's the second half of 2020. And then the repeat test taker stat is about 37. It was 30 at the beginning of 2020. And then let's see, 35% and then 30%. So you can see it actually, the repeat test taker percentage goes down. I will break it down even further. Yeah, in the next slide. But the 67%, and then for those of you that maybe were guessing like the average, it's 55% is kind of all in number, 55, 54, 56, 53. Okay.
Someone just asked, why is it lower?
Yeah, why is it lower? Okay. And that is why, like, this is the topic of today's thing, is the mistakes that people make in their method of studying, that they don't from what I've heard from when I have conversations with people that have not passed, it's that they don't change their method. They say, or they think that just studying more will increase their score, but it's actually studying differently and more efficiently and effectively that is going to be the difference, which I'm going to get into all that, and you're going to know what that means. But yeah, it's just people that they're vulnerable to not passing to begin with, which means they need these strategies. They need these learning strategies in order to get over the hump and to actually pass. I would say those are people that maybe struggle with test anxiety or just test taking in general, where they're just not, they don't have those skills. And again, their learning method, how they're actually studying for it. So, okay. And then breaking down the attempts, I did want to point this out because it's also seems counterintuitive too, but so you have like the first attempt is a 67, which we already talked about, but then it breaks down the second attempt percentage, third attempt, fourth or more attempt, and their pass rates. So you can see like the attempts percentage that passed keeps going down. Now you're basically weeding out people, like if they can't keep passing, or if they keep not passing, their chances are just of that bucket of people are just lower because there's some barrier for them that they can't identify. And so that's kind of why you see the stats go down. I'm sure you guys all know like how stats can be interpreted differently, but that is really interesting to me. And then that's how it goes into that 55% average, like all in of everyone that attempted the exam that year.
Okay. And then Jenny, we had a question from Danae asking if there are pass-fail statistics that are associated with common studying resources used, I guess like Inman or something like that.
You know, not really. Maybe I've seen like tutoring pass fail rates have been like promoted by those companies, but the thing that's interesting, so we have a study guide, it's called Pass the Exam Prep, and we don't actually like do a stat or share a stat about our pass rate for people that use it, because we found that people, sometimes they don't have the accountability to use the method that we teach or like go through the study guide, and they probably needed a little bit more outside support to get that done for them personally. So then it's like, well, we can't really take credit for a pass or a fail because if they didn't use it to the full advantage. So it's hard to, I know for like other companies that have RD exam, it's hard to come up with that stat fairly because of everyone's unique situations with it. So.
And it would just be self-reporting, right? And this comes like directly from the testing computer system or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. It does break down. There's other stats that they share, like even people that completed coordinated programs versus dietetic internships versus distance internships versus like traditional. So you can kind of see where the different stats, they vary slightly, but I would say it's still the 67%, 35%, around 55% average is generally what it is. Okay. And then I do want to point out, so when I started All Access Dietetics, I was going into my dietetic internship, and I was in a cycle. So every 5 years, the exam changes. And so we're about to enter a new change, like I mentioned, with those shifts in the domains percentages. So we've been in this cycle, like the 2017 to 2022 to 2021, end of 2021 right now. Then there was a cycle before that, and then there was a cycle I did that was before that. And I would say my cycle and then this previous one, to the one we're in now, their pass rates were much higher. So they had a first time pass rate of 87%, 46% for repeat, and like total of 79, 72, 74. But yeah, and I remember like I was telling the team at Swerve before this call, like I studied for the RD exam personally, like for 2 weeks, and crammed it all in, didn't follow any of my advice, and I still passed. And I say that not to be like, oh, look at me, I passed like on my first try, but to say the pass rate at the time was about 20% higher than it is now, if I'm doing the math correctly. Yeah, like 67 to 87. And you know, it is a more difficult test now. I don't think I would have passed. I mean, I barely passed. I think I went full questions and I got the lowest passing score, which is 25. And I don't think I would have if I would have done that same strategy now, which I think is just really interesting, that it is becoming more difficult, and there are just impacts that have been made because of it. And that's where I bring up the pandemic, you know, COVID-19, and the impact that it's had on RD2B's training, like internship experiences. In general, they should prepare you because they increase your understanding of what you learned in your DPD, right? Like the education pathway is set up so that you learn the knowledge in your DPD, and then you go apply that knowledge in real world rotations, and that really solidifies your understanding and it helps develop your critical thinking skills. But then you had COVID-19 and all the issues that came with that, not only like the mental stressors, so many stressors that people had to endure as students, you know, in your internship rotations. I'm sure no one was, you know, performing or thinking or learning at their highest level possible during this time, and you know, still probably now. And then also internships, rotations maybe were switched for you. Like maybe you couldn't go you couldn't go in person to a clinical, so you had to do virtual. And even though you got maybe case studies or things to try to replicate that situation, it wasn't the same. And so I do think I have a theory that there is a knowledge and a critical thinking skills gap right now. And I'm nervous for the pass rates, although I think it's all like fixable, and people are certainly passing. Like we hear people like our clients like passing every week. So people are certainly passing the exam right now. But you do have to adapt to that. You have to think there's probably a larger gap because of your own background and situation. And you want to acknowledge what those are and make sure that you're filling that in with, studying more in that area, or, there's lots of things like even getting a tutor, or just thinking of maybe working in that area if you can, to try to bridge that gap and build those critical thinking or understanding muscles while you're doing it. So that's, I think, what's happening right now. All right, let's get into it. The 4 mistakes no one talks about. I do these free coaching calls. They're 15 minutes. I do probably 30 or so a week on them. I love it. I love talking to people around the country because I just get to hear what people struggle with and try to fix that and create solutions to help. And so 3 years ago, decided to get into the RD exam world. We had previously just done application coaching for getting into internships. And I realized from talking to students and hearing from past clients that were in internships that the RD exam was getting harder and harder, which you could see from those stats, like the pass rate was going down. And I realized I wanted to create something, like have some innovative tool that allowed people to pass the exam, increase their chances and pass the exam. And it was through having these free coaching calls that I learned what the mistakes are that so many students are making, but I say no one is talking about, because if you have not, imagine if you did not pass the exam, would you want to tell people about that? Like, no one talks about it. No one wants to share that they've failed. And then you have people that feel really alone. I'm like, listen, like, did you know 70% of repeat test takers don't pass? Because it's a 30% pass rate. So 70% don't pass. Like, you're not alone in this. And I just need to share these mistakes that people make because, again, it's just not being talked about. And the only thing you kind of hear is all the different stories of what people did to pass, but it's so different for everyone. So you can't really listen to what anyone says with that. Now I'm going to go through 4 inspired by true life, based on true events, types characters that are going to be influenced from the conversations that I've had where someone either had one of these mistakes or did all of these, or, a combination. And I'm hoping that you'll see yourself in one, if not more, of these types of people and change your approach because of it. So I'll share how you can change your strategy with that. So Mike the Memorizer, let me just check the time. Okay, so Mike the Memorizer, in college, he relied heavily on and was comfortable with his study approach of memorizing. I can resonate with Mike the Memorizer because I remember just, history class or Greek mythology class, just stuffing all these facts into my head and then spitting them out on the exam, and really heavily relying on just straight memorization for a lot of my classes. And then Mike tried to use the same approach from his college to the RD exam and memorize an entire study guide. This made him feel very overwhelmed, burnt out. Obviously it's so hard to memorize every single detail. He also studied practice questions, but he used the same ones. So he was starting to actually memorize the correct answers. I've heard this so many times. If you just have a bank of questions and you use them over and over, the same ones, you're not really getting better at the questions. You're just memorizing the correct answer. So it's very misleading. Now that's Mike. What went wrong for Mike? So Mike spent too much time trying to memorize, and he didn't spend enough time strengthening his critical thinking skills. So why does this not work? If you remember, I was saying, you have the knowledge from the DPD courses, and then you apply that in the internship, and you're supposed to have those critical thinking skills, be able to apply the knowledge into a situation and have like that true understanding of a concept or topic, like in the real world. And that's what the RD exam is testing you on. They're testing you on your understanding and critical thinking skills for the real world, because they need to make sure that you're competent to be an entry-level dietitian in the real world. And it's not just about your retention of knowledge. I think you need both. I think there are things you do have to memorize, have at top of mind, like lab values, sources of vitamins and minerals in food, temperature of sanitation, sinks, dishwashers, all that. There is that component, but overall, you really need to make sure that you're understanding topics and knowing the why behind them. Now, how do you do this? So how do you understand and not just memorize for the exam? I'll give you 3 of many different tactics that you can use, but one example would be that you use blank worksheets and you test your understanding of topics without looking at notes. So you might see there might be a table of, I'm just going to keep saying lab values, just to give that example. There's plenty of other topics where this applies, but you would say, those are the lab values, and you would write in what you know on those lab values and prove to yourself that you can understand that, or that you can explain all of those things or explain these drug interactions to friends or family. And it's when you do that you prove to yourself that you really understand it and you're not just memorizing facts. Same thing with a lot of situational questions that you'll get on the exam, or even if you're practicing them in your studying, you want to make sure that you fully understand the rationale without looking at the answer. That's the second topic, is when you're doing those practice questions, don't look at the answer right away and really force yourself and prove to yourself that you know why that answer is right and why the other answers are wrong. And then finally, kind of an easy tip for Mike would be definitely next time use a larger bank of practice questions. So you're not just repeating and memorizing answers, so that you can actually really understand where you're at, what gaps you have, where you need to spend more time studying by having more questions. There's great free questions on Quizlet.com, so you can definitely check that out and go there. There's hundreds of good questions that are similar to what an exam question would be like. Of course, not the same questions from the exam, but they're good. They're challenging, and they'll be good to help you prove to yourself that you're understanding the answers. Okay, moving on to passive Patricia. And by passive, I mean passive learner Patricia. So she read and rewrote an entire study guide. She did practice questions where she gave her best guess, kind of quizzed herself, and then she graded herself and looked at the answer rationale right away. She was studying for 8 hours a day doing this, and it never really felt like enough. She didn't feel like things were sticking. And what's going on here is kind of old school way of studying. So there's the old school way that's very heavy in passive learning, meaning kind of the analogy I would describe is you're floating down a river studying, as opposed to paddling upstream, which the opposite would be active learning. And we'll get into that in the next slide. So Patricia was using passive learning. It's easy to read and rewrite a study guide, right? It's not hard. You're just reading it and rewriting it. And then same with doing the quizzes. It's not hard to just go through them quickly and grade yourself on it. Now, what went wrong for Patricia? Patricia went into the exam feeling like the questions were confusing and she couldn't recall the information even though she remembered studying it. Why doesn't this work? Patricia used passive learning techniques which are not as efficient as active learning techniques. And that's a research evidence-based thing. There's plenty of research around how our brains will retain information better when you're using active learning techniques. How do you actively learn? Again, many ways, but it's similar to Mike in that he didn't incorporate the passive learning as much. But with this, you can think, okay, you need to know what your learning style is. Is it audio, visual, kinesthetic? And then you need to challenge yourself with active learning techniques. And that could be using the blank worksheets and tables as an example. Flashcards, you could be writing or speaking into recording your voice, saying something or explaining something and then listening back to it. Just things that are more interactive, more engaging for your brain. And then expose yourself to more practice test questions in a way that you kind of go slower with them and kind of use that as the primary tool to where you're breaking down each one, making sure you understand each topic, and then can move on from there. Okay. The third mistake person character is No Plan Nicole. So Nicole, she told me that she sat and read material a few times a week. She used multiple study guides. She felt very overwhelmed with how she could get through all of them. She would listen to comments in Facebook groups about all the different ways people studied and all the tools they used. She was just like all over the place, and just never really put a plan into action. So she did not have a set plan. She didn't know when to schedule the exam or if she felt ready or like she spent enough time, and she took it too early, and she should have probably moved her date back. So not having a study plan will decrease the likelihood of a successful exam day. With that, I'm going to go a little bit faster because I see the time. So, and you guys will get the slides with all of the notes on here, which is awesome. But yeah, so I want to make sure you guys know how to create a study plan. That study plan should include like a calendar where you're planning the when and the what. So being really specific about the sessions, like what are you going to do during that time? What topics are you going to do? And make sure that how you're studying them lines up with your learning style. And then you do want to plan, this is a great tip from our tutor that I incorporated here, Susie. She also has her clients plan for extra time on a weaker topic. So kind of like a contingency plan where you say, like, here's my block of time this week where if I don't understand any topics from my previous 2 sessions, I'm going to create a time block where I'm going to cover those in that session. So you can see how much detail can go into your study plan. The key to your study plan, though, is to really reflect on the progress that you're making and be honest with yourself. So if life gets in the way and you need to adapt your study plan, you definitely want to do that. And if you feel like you need an accountability partner or a coach or someone, you should really consider that too if you feel like you're not staying on pace with your plan. And then don't be afraid to move your date back if you need to. The final point is that more does not equal better if your study plan is not efficient or your study method is not efficient. And I say that kind of goes back to why the pass rate, I think, drops as people repeat the exam. They think, okay, I'll just put in another 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks of studying. But if their method is the same, that's never going to get them to the passing that they need to be. It needs to be a more efficient study method, one that would be active learning and focusing on understanding. Okay.
And guys, sorry, Jenny. I am seeing some awesome questions in the chat. I'm jotting these down. So I'll let you finish on your slides, and then we'll go over these questions at the end when we have our Q&A. Perfect. Okay. I think I have like 3 more slides, so we'll be good. All right. So self-doubt Samantha, this is the final one. This is definitely more common among repeat test takers, but she always thought she was a really bad test taker. She had test anxiety. She didn't think she could pass the exam and wanted to give up multiple times throughout. And so with this, Samantha probably needed more support than she was giving herself. And honestly, you guys, I've heard so many different things around test anxiety, and just like this very limiting self-belief in yourself, which is so normal. And everyone deals with it, but I definitely see this being a barrier for people. And I just want to say, if you need to hear this, it's okay to get help if this is something you really want. If you really, want to pass this exam, it's very easy to give up when you have that mental block, but there's so many resources available that I think, can make it worth it to just invest in that. I've had people that had test anxiety and have had it diagnosed, but then didn't ask for accommodations for the RD exam for whatever reason. And just by doing that, they were able to pass on the next attempt. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Talk to the testing center about accommodations you can get, and just try to set yourself up and give yourself those support and resources that you need. The other things are to get excited about your career as a dietitian. It's kind of mindset work, reflect on everything you've done already to prepare for this big day. You can also do a simulated exam day, try to replicate everything as much as possible. That's a tutor tip that we give to people on their exam week. To the person, Amanda, I think it was, who's taking the exam tomorrow. Maybe, I don't know if it's too late, maybe squeeze in 2 hours tonight and try to replicate what that would feel like.
and, you know, have that game plan for the day. When are you getting up? When are you going to take the exam? You know, are you better in the morning or in the afternoon? Try to do it based on when you're most comfortable. And then think about getting a tutor for accountability or support as well to just stay confident. Okay, I'm going to skip that poll question for time. And then final thing here, I think, yes, and then the summary is that everyone is really different. You know, Facebook groups are helpful, but I've been in those Facebook groups, those RD exam Facebook groups, and everyone says what they did to study and pass. And I can tell you right now, I've heard, like, you'll hear every single type of approach, and you shouldn't really listen to it. It's similar to the diet world, right? Where just because this person's eating like this doesn't mean you should eat like this too. Everyone is so different. You have people coming from different education and experience backgrounds. You have different obligations, an available study time with your work and family versus full-time studying. You have different levels of test taking, IQ levels, learning styles, knowledge gaps. I mean, there's so many things, and I've heard so many different paths. I know someone, you know, I recently talked to that waited 6 years from the time they finished their internship. They didn't take the exam until 6 years later. And so that person, their study plan is going to be so much different than someone who's just coming out of the internship. Then you have, of course, the mindset and mental health differences. Like, those are real things. Those are all things to be considered when you're thinking about your study plan and how you should go about this and approach this versus comparing yourself to what your friends did. This is the final summary. So instead of memorizing, you want to focus on understanding topics. Instead of passive learning, you want to use a study guide that promotes active learning. Instead of no plan, you want to have a personalized plan and adjust it as you go and be honest with yourself about that. And then instead of doubting yourself, get that help that you need and the resources to increase your confidence. Okay, so I think that's it. Yes. So do you want me to stop then, Amy, and we can start with questions?
Yeah, sure. We can start with some Q&A. Well, Jenny, thank you so much. That was like an awesome wealth of information. I feel like I'm like, wow, if I ever like go back and like get another certification or something, like I know what to do now. Like, this was great. So thank you so much.
It would apply. Yeah, it would apply if you were doing like a board certification or something.
Yeah, it's any exam. So that is awesome. Well, guys, I jotted down some questions, so we'll get to those first. But if you do have questions, you can pop them in the chat now. I'll be monitoring and everything. But let's start back. One just quick one that someone actually answered in the chat was, can you go back and change your answers? And the answer to that is no, right?
No, yeah, you cannot.
Okay, so you have to answer it and then move on to the next one. Okay, so the next one was kind of about, and I feel like this, like you said, it's maybe a little bit different for everyone, but like, how long should you study before you choose to take the RD exam? And then also on top of that, how many like hours a day should you study?
Okay, so the first one, definitely it's individualized based on, you know, if you say 8 weeks full-time versus someone who has a full-time job and someone who's just studying full-time, that'll be a different amount of hours each time. So there is no good answer for that. I would say, like, if I have to give an answer, it's probably like 3 months is the average, but that can vary more or less based on people's availability to study. And then your study session, what we suggest in Pass the Exam Prep and kind of goes along with brain science and retention, is no longer than 3 hours for a study session. And you could have up to 2 study sessions in a day, like separated, but don't sit there for longer than 3 hours and study.
Okay. Great. And someone else had just asked about that, so it's a great answer. And then questions about actual resources. Somebody was asking, what resources should you use? Should you stick to one and stick to it? Or someone was using up to 4. And then someone also asked about if you're more of a visual learner. Someone mentioned visual veggies as a resource. So do you have any thoughts or opinions on which resources are the best or good to use whenever you're studying?
Yeah, I mean, I'm extremely biased here with All Access Dietetics and their Pass the Exam Prep. And the reason I say that is because it teaches you the method, plus it has the study guides that incorporate that method. So as long as you, like, even if you don't get past the exam prep, whatever tools you're using, as long as you're applying the method of using active learning techniques and making sure that you have test questions that you're exposing yourself to, and you're not just memorizing, then, you know, you can definitely be successful. And there are people that have, but you also, I do see people get overwhelmed by it, by multiple things. So, you kind of have to find that balance and just really reflect with yourself. But yeah, I mean, I'll always say, I think ours is amazing. And people usually do pair it with like watching YouTube videos or listening to, there's a great podcast called the RD Exam or Chomping the Exam, RD Exam podcast. So like you can mix things up because you want to have those different learning techniques, but I think, you know, it could be an all-in-one plus some supportive tools after that.
Okay. So it's really going back to what you said about knowing your learning style, being an active learner, and like knowing what resource can be most helpful for that. And I'm sure with all these things, if you can ask these questions before you go and buy something like that, I'm sure, you know, anybody's going to be open to answering those questions.
Yeah, definitely. And we have clients, because we have the past the exam prep, and then we have recordings, like review session recordings, then coaching. And then we have free calls. So like you can set up a free call with me and I can just talk you through, if you've already purchased something, and you just want to know how to use it better, and you just want to get that study plan figured out. Like I do calls and talk to students all the time, and I can help them based on whatever their, you know, certain background is and what they want to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then someone asked about your specific program, past the exam prep. Is there visuals? There like charts? Is there like, you know, more like pictures type things rather than just being super, super word heavy?
Yeah, definitely. There's lots of charts, visuals. There's like study guide questions in it. So it feels more like a workbook in a way, because it'll still have the content explained, but it'll have like study guide questions that just make you stop and make sure you're truly understanding it, as well as practice questions throughout as well. So it feels more like an experience is how I explain it.
Okay, cool. And then this is just like a tactical question, but like, what should you wear?
To the RD exam?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, layers is important. Layers are important. So having like a sweater to where if it's too hot in there, you can take it off. Like if you're sweating from nerves, you can take it off, or if you're cold, put it on. So that's important. And then just anything that's like, you're not going to like fidget with it, or like pants that aren't going to be uncomfortable, like loose fitting, you know, just things
But
that
regular, like it doesn't have to be business attire or anything.
No, just it's whatever you want. There might, to be honest, you would just want to read through whatever Pearson VUE, like they might not allow hoodies now that I'm thinking about it, because they don't want someone like putting notes in a hoodie. So just make sure that like those rules you have covered, but otherwise just be very comfortable layers, and you know, just not, so it's not a distraction. It's not like something you're thinking about.
Okay, awesome. And then guys, there's everyone's kind of suggesting some different resources, YouTube videos, pass the exam prep, that's your program. Let's see. Eula just purchased your material, and she's been sending me emails about information and resources. So Jenny, you make it super personal. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely try to make everyone succeed. I forgot, I just saw someone in here said about the free worksheets. We do have so much, you guys. I can forget it all, but like we have a free RD exam toolkit. It's on our website. If you just go to our website and hit RD exam prep, you'll see it at the bottom of the page, and that's free. It has the free worksheets that you can use to apply the active learning. It has a free review session in there, plus the one you guys are going to get today, and like how to study, a calendar schedule. Yeah, so much. So definitely go there and get that.
Okay, and then a few more questions about like day of. Can you go take a mock exam somewhere, like a practice exam?
Not like at the official site. You could just maybe try to set that up at like an office or something. But yeah, I think you could probably like go to the site if you were really nervous. You could just go and like take a peek in the exam room to see what it looked like. But otherwise, I don't know of anywhere that does that.
Okay. And then this is a little bit of a longer question. If you aren't taking the exam until after the 2022 change, when would you recommend getting resources? It seems what is out now wouldn't be the most effective for the new exam.
Okay, yeah, it's I mean, I would say the exam itself, probably 90% 95% will be the same as it is now. It's just the amount, like there's a couple topics, like I said, decrease in food science and nutrition composition, and then more in like regulatory stuff or regulatory affairs. But I would say don't delay on that because it's not going to be significant enough to where it'll make a huge impact. If you get past the exam prep and then there's updates, we give every current customer all the updates anyways, like as part of the price. So you wouldn't have to worry about that either.
Okay, awesome. And then someone just said, Mary just said, eWrite Pro has an online mock exam in addition to a couple paper exams, and it's $60. So if you want to do a mock exam, there you go.
And that's great because they're the ones that write it. They're the ones that write the exam, CDR. So that's great resource.
Okay, awesome. And then a few more like day of questions. Can you bring water? Can you like stand and stretch during the exam? Do you get a break? Can you go to the bathroom?
I'm like kind of embarrassed because I can't remember if you get I know you for sure get a break or you can take a break. Okay. If you want. Honestly, like I don't know that. I should know that. Yeah. I haven't been.
If anyone's taken the exam recently, let us know in the chat if you get a little bathroom break.
I think you have to. Okay. Oh, but the clock still continues. Yeah.
So make sure you go to the bathroom before.
Right. And then you wouldn't want to be drinking water during.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, awesome. I'm making sure I got everything. Guys, if I missed your question, you can just put it in again. I want to make sure we get everyone's questions here. You can only have water if you have medical waiver. Okay. Tips for someone that is taking it a couple years after the internship is finished. So they may not be like quite as, brushed up on all the information.
Yeah, I mean, with that, it's going to be both the knowledge, they'll need the knowledge gap filled and then the like critical thinking understanding. So they might have to spend more time just on straight like exposure, like learning, memorizing, like trying to remember all of that first, and then take that and then go to the understanding, like more doing the questions and applying the information. But yeah, there's definitely for them, like we get people that will do tutoring in that case because they'll get the one-on-one, like teaching the concepts over again. And then we have the review sessions that would be more lecture style that are similar to like what you'd get in a DPD. I think that's really helpful for people as well. It's not necessarily like the method, but it's still important for them. And like people can always benefit from the refresher.
Okay, awesome. And then we had a question from Chandani. I hope I'm saying your name right. When will we know the winners of the giveaway? And since it's a student registration, if we become an RD, we won't be able to use it. We can just, we'll figure that out. Yeah, if you become an RD after the fact, we'll just make sure, we'll register like right before it. So we make sure that, you're good to go and can attend if you win. So, yeah, you can just reach out to me directly for that. My email is amy@swervesuite.com. Okay, and then let's see, is there a review session for D3 and D4? Domain 3, is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, it's a review session. Yeah, we cover, I don't know if she means for like All Access, the review sessions that we do, we have 12 and we do cover all the domains. They're just separated by topic. So you can see how those all break down. But yeah, they're 90 minutes each and they're recorded. So they're just things you can do on your own time.
Okay. And then questions about calculators. It looks like some of the sites might be a little bit different. Some places let you take them in, some places no. Do you know about that, Jenny?
Yeah, they are. It is just different from what I've heard. And so you can always call or talk to the site beforehand. It is helpful. A tutor suggested this too, to use try to use like a similar calculator. Like if you can bring it in, use the one you're going to bring in. Like don't use your phone when you're studying and using your calculator on your phone. Just try to replicate as much as you can, just so you kind of get in that vibe. And then same if it is like on the computer, you can pull up like a computer calculator and just get used to that.
Okay, perfect. And then someone asked, is there a specific number of times you can take the exam? I'm going to, I guess, take mine in Canada and the US, and I know Canada has a maximum of 3 attempts.
There's no max of attempts that you can do. I mean, which I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
Good or
For some
bad.
people, they might think like, oh, there's no pressure, like I could just take it again. So that, but then maybe other people might be good with that because they're like, okay, at least I could take it again if I don't pass. So yeah, there's no max there.
Okay, cool. And then, oh my gosh, so many good questions. Someone also asked, should you study the night before the exam or should you just rest?
It's a little bit personal, but for most people, I would say just rest and try to just kind of calm the nerves and make sure you get a good night's sleep with them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's see. Jesse asked, what percent of each domain should you be scoring on practice exams to pass, since I know each domain is weighted?
So hard because those practice percentages are different. They're not weighted. Like in terms of, even if you got 60% right, that might be enough for the exam because you might have more difficult questions. Sorry, it's so hard to explain, but that, okay, like we've taught, like the creator of Pass the Exam Prep is like, it's not a good indicator. But you just do want to make sure, like, what we've heard from people is like they just feel like their retention and understanding gets better as they keep studying. So as long as you feel like you're making progress in that sense, or if you're reviewing something that you reviewed 3 or 4 weeks ago and you're like, it feels fresh, like those are sort of the signals that you're getting the understanding and you're starting to build that competency.
Yeah. Okay. And then Jennifer asked, how long do we have access to the recorded sessions after buying them? And I guess she's asking about your program.
Oh yeah, you have 7 days for, if you buy one recording, you get 7 days to watch it and as many times as you want, and you get the study guide with that as well, like a mini study guide with the slides. But if you buy the full, like all 12 of them, then you get 12 weeks total for to watch all 12.
Okay, that's good to have a time limit because it forces you to study.
Yeah, yeah. Yes.
You're so smart. Okay, and then Karina just asked, does it really get harder to pass the exam if you did not pass the first time?
And we saw the stats, and of course, there's people that did pass the second time. So I think it's a really, yeah, people are just really different. I've heard it all though. I've heard people say like that their score went down the second time. I've just heard it all. So you just want to be really honest with yourself about like how much time you're putting into it, making sure that you're not rushing. I know people that will take it again and they're so like impatient about it that they do the 45 days. And so like for a repeat test taker, I would recommend way more than 45 days. And I would say, just spend more time and make sure. The other interesting like mistake people make is you will get like weighted scores in your domain 1 and 2 and then 3 and 4. And so they'll see like, okay, I was really weak, let's say in domain 1 from my first attempt. So they'll spend all their time like studying domain 1 and then they'll not spend enough time on the others thinking like, oh, I'm good. But you really, for every attempt, you need to make sure you're covering everything. Again, I hear that a lot because then it'll switch and then they'll be like, I was good on domain 1 and then I was really not good on domain 4. So
yeah. Okay. And then someone also asked, talking about the domain questions again, are they mixed up in the RD exam? It's all scattered. Okay.
It's all random. And that's how you should study too, is you should, and that's why we break up Pass the Exam Prep by topics where like domains are somewhat mixed in, like some are pretty similar, but like it does bounce between different domains in study guides. And then the other thing is with your exam questions, make sure it's random when you're exposing yourself to those.
Okay. That's good to know. I definitely did not do that. I would do like each section at a time.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jenny.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, I say it like I'm kind of speaking to the most vulnerable people that may not pass. There's certainly so many different, like people maybe made all of these mistakes and still passed, but that's because maybe they just had different experience in life. They maybe are just great test takers. IQ is better. Like, so just know that. But for those of you that are like, I'm not sure, like just don't do these mistakes and that'll help a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this was such a wealth of information. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Guys, remember, Emily, if you want to drop that link again for the sign up for the RD exam review session recording, and then also the registration for Fancy. You can sign up for all those giveaways there, and then you can also sign up for our newsletter if you were interested. We do events like this pretty much every month now, sometimes more than a month. We also have a great Facebook group. It's called Dietitians for Dessert. So we would love to have you join that Facebook group as well. I hope y'all enjoyed this. Remember, we're going to have these slides and the recording available. So we'll definitely send that out. And then Jenny, if you would like to tell us where everyone can find you, all your social handles, your website, all that good stuff too.
Sure. Yeah, definitely check out allaccessdietetics.com and then the tab RD exam prep. That will be where you can see all the different services that we have and products. And then at the bottom of that page is the RD exam toolkit. I think that's been downloaded like 4,000 times. So you definitely want to get that. And then in addition, if anyone has any questions about getting the recording or whatever, or anything about our services, my email's at the bottom of the website, and it's Jenny at allaccessdietetics.com, Jenny with a Y. And then, yeah. Oh, and final plug. So we have the RD to Be Summit is August 2nd, and Swerve will be a great sponsor and supporter of that too. So definitely come to that. We'll be covering more on the RD exam and more on just the future of dietetics and all the different things going on as a student. So I hope you guys can come there as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jenny. This was amazing. Again, this was such great information and loved having you. You're a dietitian rock star, and you know, you're just the best. So
I appreciate having
you so much. Yeah. So Emily, can you put the link to the Facebook group in the chat? And let's see, what is it that oh, Rachel. Rachel has a question. What should she download again? It was like a RD exam
RD exam toolkit. Yep. And that is at the bottom of the RD exam prep page on our website.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so guys, we'll follow up with all this awesome stuff through email, the slides, the recording, all of the links, all of the things, our Facebook group, Jenny's toolkit. So much great information here. So thank you again so much, Jenny, and thank y'all so much for coming. We really appreciate it. We know your time is precious. So hope this was helpful for y'all.
Bye.
Bye, guys.